Fran Fraschilla. He joins us now in the program. Hey, Fran, good morning.
James, it's a pleasure. How are you today?
Fantastic. We are locked and loaded for the upcoming weekend. ESPN Game Day is going to have Houston and Texas Tech. Speaking
Yep.
of Texas Tech, my goodness. Like, if you bridge the last 9 minutes of the BYU game and the first,
Yeah.
30 of the Baylor game, they outscored those two teams 100-56. It's just incredible what they're
Yeah.
doing with Christian Anderson running the show at the point.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm a huge fan of Christian's. Gotten to know that family well. His dad was a terrific European player. You know, a lot of people don't realize that Christian is actually German. I know Anderson is an Americanized name, but dad, is born in Germany, played in Germany, and then they moved to Atlanta when dad played college basketball here. But great family. The kid is sensational. And he's even surprised me. I mean, I sang his praises last year, James, as he kind of co-piloted that Elite Eight team with Elijah Hawkins, but really coming into his own. Arguably right now an All-American guard, which is kind of crazy because they have an All-American center forward in JT Toppin. It's going to be interesting how the votes go, but they're playing great. And here's the crazy thing: they're still without a couple more pieces up front. Joe Mosley, the transfer from Villanova, and Bamboye, the VCU transfer, who is a shot blocker, is a rim protector. So kudos to them. I also think Lawan Watts is coming into his own, much the way Darian Williams did when he transferred from Nevada. Lawan is a terrific third piece for that team. And, of course, JT Toppin, it's almost like he's sharing the limelight now with the other two.
Yeah, how important is Bamboye to kind of preserve Toppin, as a guy that can really bang down low and take some of that wear and tear off of him?
It's important because, JT and Christian are playing lots of minutes right now, and there's no signs that they're letting up at all. But I mean, as during a long season, whether it's injuries or fatigue, and also the wear and tear of a league like the Big 12, it does take its toll. But the most important thing, and I talked to Coach McCaslin about this right before the start of Big 12 play, is as much as they have a lot of pieces, they don't have a rim protector. Now, it didn't hurt them as much in the BYU game, and certainly not against Baylor, who doesn't have a lot of depth up front. But you'll have some teams coming up here like Arizona, who can, and Iowa State comes to mind. Florida Badunga comes to mind. That those guys can cause some wear and tear on your front line. So apparently, every time I go out to Lubbock, like the kids that are hurt are like a week away. So I'm not sure when they're coming back. Maybe they'll come back for game day.
Yeah, I asked Grant about Bamboye, and he just said, I stopped asking. I stopped asking him. I stopped asking the doctors. I just stopped asking.
Right, right. And they don't want that to be a distraction, in the course of a season. Like it's obvious they have some great players already on the roster that they can beat anybody in the league or anybody in the country. So you just deal with it until hopefully all three of those kids, because Mariel's back now, but he doesn't have the experience to play in these games. But Joe Mosley played a lot of minutes, a young man from Round Rock, played a lot of minutes for Villanova as a freshman. And obviously Bamboye was second leading shot blocker in the country last year, according to Ken Palm.
Well, they'll try to beat one of the best teams in the country on Saturday with Houston. That's the ESPN Game Day launch, if you will. What will be the biggest factor in the outcome of that matchup?
It's a great question. Houston is getting better and better. They're very similar to last year when they started 4-3. Of course, they only have one loss this year to Tennessee. But where they're similar in that is in that we saw them, James, getting better and better as the season went on. Remember, they lost three heartbreakers, and nationally, everybody forgot about them, especially in the polls. Well, people realize how good this team is this year because they only have one loss, but those freshmen are getting better and better. And by now, even Kelly McCarty's playing well. They have four freshmen in the rotation, which is very unusual for a Kelvin Sampson team. But those kids have grown up quickly. And I would say, oh man, the greatest thing about this matchup is there's so many matchups in this game that can be factors in the outcome. The guard play, Flemings and Anderson, Emmanuel Sharp, the size inside, Tugler, and JT Toppin. Keep in mind, the last two times they've met, they've pretty much gone right down to the wire. The one win in Houston for Texas Tech last year when JT got ejected for the flagrant two, and then a matchup a couple weeks ago where it was just a rock. We call it a rock fight. When you hear that term, it just means everything about the game is going to be physical, tough. It's not going to be pretty, and I expect this to be the same thing. Now, I would say that somebody like Anderson, Fleming, Sharp, Atwell making key threes. If one of those guys makes six threes, that's a huge advantage because it's really hard to get an offensive flow when you're playing both of those teams because they're so good defensively.
Fran, how do you beat Arizona?
Good question. I watched them last night against Cincinnati, and I love the team. I mean, they're number one for a reason. I love everything about them. I think the first thing you got to do is you got to shut off the water inside because they really play from inside out.
Yeah.
People say, James, that they're not a great 3-point shooting team. Well, they're shooting 37% from three, but the way Tommy Lloyd has played at Arizona and the way they played at Gonzaga, you think of Drew Timme and Chet Holmgren. You think of Sabonis, you think of Elias Harris, Kelly Olynyk, and that's the same formula that he's brought to Arizona. So the first thing you got to do is match their physicality inside because of the way they play through Pete and Krivas and Awaka. And then I do think you got to hope that they're not on from the perimeter. Got to keep them out of transition because they have a great point guard in Jaden Bradley, and he pushes the pace. But I think ultimately you got to kind of shut off the inside, match them rebounding wise if you can, and hope they don't have a great shooting night because they really do have, to me, 8 starters, or at least 7.5 with Aristotle still getting his feet wet. They're a wonderful team to watch.
Fran, have you caught wind of what Bobby Hurley said post-game last night after their loss to West Virginia?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not even see the score because I went to bed early and I just woke up here in Colorado. So tell me.
Okay, so West Virginia wins the game. Huge win for the
Yep.
Mountaineers. But then post-game, Bobby Hurley had some comments about the lack of home court advantage for Arizona State, and he called the
Yeah.
environment sterile and
Yeah.
almost it sounded like they don't win at home because they don't have the fans, or the fans not there because they don't win at home.
Right.
And he even said he doesn't see light at the end of the tunnel. But we were highlighting West Virginia and how big of a win that is for them because all of a sudden, like, they're 4-2 in Big 12 play, and winning on the road anywhere in this league is massive.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, like, I got to know Grant Hill and Ross Hodge when they were in Dallas at North Texas, and when and I'm going to say this respectfully, Darren DeFries never really put 2 feet on the ground in Morgantown. Okay, whatever happened there about him going to Indiana, maybe he knew about it during the season. And you know what? They're getting their comeuppance right now because the Sun's not playing great and Indiana's struggling. And I told Ross, and I say this, and I don't mean to sound smug about this, but Ross and Grant are friends, and when they were talking about Ross's name being mentioned, by the way, they got a great AD in Ren Baker, okay, and he knows what he's doing. And Ross Hodge is a great fit for West Virginia. He's a good old boy, salt of the earth guy. He's not fancy. I lived in southeastern Ohio. When I coached at Ohio U, I've spent many obviously games in Morgantown, calling games. These are some of the best people on the planet. They love their team. They're the pro team in the state. It's not a wealthy state as people know, so you have to really embrace being a West Virginia Mountaineer. And if you embrace pepperoni rolls, that's probably even better. The state food. But I'm so happy for Ross because he's the perfect fit for that community and that state because he's a blue collar, hard hat, coal mining guy, if you will. And so from that standpoint, kudos to them. I love Bobby Hurley. Quite frankly, they haven't created a reason to have a home court advantage in recent years. They've had some good teams, some good moments, and it's unfortunate because it is a hard job now. It is a hard job. College basketball is not the main thing in Phoenix, like it is in Tucson, but it's just a sign of frustration, I think.
Fran, I got to defend you here because I know, there are a lot of Kansas fans that think you hate Kansas. As somebody that knows you, like I could speak, pretty openly that I don't think you hate Kansas. Why do Kansas fans especially, as I'm one, think you hate Kansas?
Well, it's very simple. It really is very simple. First of all, it's about 5% of the Kansas fan base, okay?
Yeah.
So number one, they're spoiled, like Arizona fans are, like Kentucky fans are, North Carolina fans. And they should be spoiled because Kansas is one of the greatest programs, if not the greatest program in the history of college basketball. Maybe John Wooden at Zurich would argue with that. But
Sure.
the other thing is I love having fun on Twitter. I really do. You can tell. I can be sarcastic sometimes. And the simple fact is I represent, when I call games for ESPN, I have been for most of my career, the, quote, Big 12 guy. And so I guess there's a few people in their fan base that don't like it when, on occasion, my very close friend Bill Self makes a decision I disagree with, whether it's signing Nick Timberlake or AJ Storr. I mean, I just call it the way I see it. The other night, for example, and it hurts me to say this, but and it wasn't done intentionally, there were 3 horrendous calls. The referees know it. I know they know that there were 3 calls that helped decide the outcome of that game. And that's just a fact. And if you're not a fan, if you're not an intelligent fan, then you think Fran has it in for the Jayhawks. So I don't think anything of it because I know there are fans in Lubbock, Waco, Ames, and other places that know I call it the way I see it. And when Buddy Hield is really good, back in the day, I talked about Oklahoma when George Niang and Monte Morris and Freddie Hoiberg were kicking butt, or maybe on occasion beating Kansas. I praise them. So the beauty of what I do is I've always had an affinity for the entire league. But having said that,
which you should, by the way, which is an important part of your job.
Yeah, there's no place like Allen Fieldhouse. It's the number one place in college basketball, with all due respect. It's the history of the game is there. I'd have to work for a living if it wasn't for Dr. Naismith, okay? The only losing coach in Kansas history. So they're probably mad they're probably mad. And again, it's a small section, and I do egg them on, as you can tell.
I would too if I were you, though, so I get it.
Yeah, and they love it in Lubbock, trust me.
And by the way, you call a lot of Kansas. The other thing is, and I tell my friends this all the time that think that you hate Kansas. You call a lot of Kansas. You call a lot of Kansas games.
Well, that too. I mean, listen, people hate Joe Buck in the middle of the country. Right. there are people in that, again, in the central part of the country that don't like Joe Buck is as good as an announcer as there is, but for some reason there are people that, like if you do games long enough, Gary Danielson in the SEC, me, you're gonna tick somebody off. I think nothing of it, honestly. I kind of get a laugh out of it, and I also always remember that Twitter's not real life. But
yeah, great
sometimes
point.
I act like it is on there, but I'm only having fun with people.
I can tell, man. You're having fun. Fran Fraschilla from ESPN. Great to see you. Thanks for popping on, and we'll keep rolling through this Big 12 slate.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll be in Provo Monday night. Arizona comes to town, maybe undefeated, and number 1 when they roll into Provo. One of the great places in college basketball, by the way. I coach in the Marriott Center. I'm ready to call my first game in the Marriott Center since I did an NIT game about 7-8 years ago.
Oh, that'll be sweet. We'll lock in for that one. Appreciate it, Fran.
Sounds good, James. All right, man. All the best. Have a great weekend.
All right.
Take care.
Fran Fraschilla from ESPN joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We pivot back